Hello, this is Joe Walensky. I'm the program manager for ConveyUX, and I'm talking with some of the many presenters that we'll be having at our event coming up in February. And today I'm talking with Eric Schaffer. Hello, Eric.
Hey, Joe.
Where are you talking to me from today?
Well, today I'm in our headquarters in Iowa in the middle of cornfields. I have offices in Mumbai, India, and Pondicherry as well, but this is our headquarters.
All right, great. Well, why don't you, for the people that may not be familiar with your background, why don't you just give us a little bit of information about you, your company, the types of things that your organization's involved with?
Okay. I've been doing UX work for almost 40 years now. I started out at CL Morrow Associates and then AT&T and Bell Labs. But since '81, I've been on this journey of being a consultant and building the Human Factors International consultancy. So that's kind of my history in a nutshell. Being a consultant, doing projects. I'm the CEO here, but I probably spend 5% of my time being CEO and most of my time actually doing technical work, leading the HFI laboratories, leading the advanced UX engineering group.
Well, I know you're always involved in a lot of different things, always thinking about new things. So, any things right now that particularly have your interest? Some new passions related to our field?
Yeah, I think there are two areas that are really exciting for me in the field. About 15 years ago, I started to realize that we already knew enough about whether to left justify fields and how big a font should be. And so having the fundamentals of design was important, but we needed to go beyond that. And so what's exciting for me is what we're going to talk about in the session that we'll do for you. And that's two things. One is, how do we move UX up the value chain? So if you think about it, UX, if all you're doing is drawing screens, it's not a very high value activity. You'll talk to the program manager and they'll applaud when they see your screens, and it adds value. But we need to move our field up into the boardroom. And to do that, we need to promote some core capabilities that are being evolved in our field. The most important is the omnichannel UX strategy viewpoint. And that's saying, looking at the big picture of how digital channels and physical channels integrate and how they can be optimized from the user's viewpoint. So we're doing project after project around that, and I find that really fun and challenging because you're looking at very large pictures, often whole countries, whole industries, and you're looking at it on a very long term, which means we have to start worrying about things like future modeling. So thinking about how things are changing so very fast right now and planning how that human ecosystem will evolve. Another part that I think is important and moves us up the value chain is going beyond just usability. So years ago, I started saying usability is no longer enough, which freaked everyone out. But just making something usable is no longer, and it's table stakes. You need to have that. You need to have usability, but we need to make things that are compelling and engaging. And so being able to make something which is fun to use, which stimulates me in an emotional way, gets at core drives, blocks, beliefs, and feelings that I care about, and something which is compelling so it'll help me convert. That persuasion engineering aspect is something which I think is very important too. So those two parts I think are really key. The other thing that I want to talk about is really my passion, and I think when I'm gone, it'll be on my gravestone. And that's the question of institutionalization of UX. So we've known in the field for a very long time how to have 6 people work together and design something well. And that's important, that craftsmanship. You have somebody who's wonderful and You have some apprentices who work with them, and we pass it. And I did that for years and years. I used to wear a long brown coat and hood and beads, and I would carry 2 tablets. And so that was part of the way that we did UX long ago. But today, 6 people is nothing. We know that we need about 10% of the design spend going to UX, 10% of the headcount. So if that's true, and I've got an organization with 100,000 people, we need 10,000 UX people. So we're starting to see organizations like IBM at least talking about, okay, how do we have 1,000? And that's way different. So as we start to build industrial strength, large scale UX practices, there's a whole nother level of approach. It's different. Just like if you make a room big enough, you start having new challenges, like it rains inside of the room. When you start making a UX team big enough, the way that that team works effectively, what you need to do to make it effective is very different. So those are the 2 things, Joe. I went on a little bit, but those are the 2 things that are exciting to me and I want to talk about. One is, how do we move our field up the value chain? So we're in the boardroom, so we are adding the kind of enormous value that we can. And 2, is that appreciation results in executives around the world going, we want to be customer-centered. They don't know what it means, but they know to say that. Then how do we go from that statement to having a mature practice that's sustainable, that is appropriate to the scale that our industry is going to?
Well, let me follow up with you a little bit. In our field, there's obviously people doing UX work in a variety of environments. Some people are working for agencies where they have a number of different clients where they're doing the work. Many of us work in organizations where internally we have our own UX teams that do things specifically for our organizations. We have organizations of different sizes. How do you see your vision, embracing all these different types of contexts that we might have? Are there some that where this is more easily reachable, or anyway, just some thoughts you might have along those lines?
Sure. Little is easier. So if you have one person, HFI has a whole training certification program, put them through that, and they'll go forward, do better work. And that's pretty easy, and working in a small team isn't bad. But the world changes as we go from 6 to 20. Running 20 is kind of the outside. And I've done all this. I've had 6-person teams, 20-person teams. 20 people, it starts being very different. You'll see most UX consultancies are 20 or fewer people. And that's because as you get beyond 20, the world starts changing. We just did the first bot program to build, operate, and transfer a 50-person UX team. So we're helping a telco set one up. And when you get to 50 people, we know how to do it, but it takes a whole set of methods and standards and knowledge management and making a process-driven organization that isn't dependent on one person. So you can't hope you have a Steve Jobs in your organization. It's just not a viable alternative. And so we need to move towards that professional industrial strength practice. That doesn't mean we don't need brilliant people. We do, but putting them in that kind of practice is what's really cool. And then for me, we kind of know how to go to a 50-person team. And at HFI, we're close to 200. But as you talk about a 1,000-person team, that's a whole nother level of challenge and concern. And so we're just learning how to do that. So the forefront is the larger teams, because that's what we're going to have to do when people realize UX is a survival factor for companies. They literally will live or not. You look at Apple with Steve Jobs driving it to a great extent. They're worth more, what, $1 trillion. They're worth more than a whole bunch of countries. But then look at Sony. Sony does similar stuff, and they do nice design, but they're dying because they don't understand the higher level UX kind of perspective, and they don't do omnichannel strategies, and they build individual things that are beautiful, but they're failing because they don't have the advanced UX capabilities. So as that becomes a key strategic imperative for companies, and Forrester ran a study and found 97% of companies that they surveyed had UX as a strategic imperative. As that's true, then we know that those companies will be investing in UX. It's a great career to be in. And that they will be looking for not a 6-person team in the corner, but an integrated operation that creates consistent user experiences and that works in an efficient way, leveraging what it knows. It'll take a very different way of doing things, and we know a lot about what that looks like. So I'm looking forward to sharing some of that with everyone coming to the sessions.
All right. Well, it would be great to have you here in Seattle to talk with all the attendees. They can listen to you during your presentation on our closing afternoon. So thanks for taking the time to talk with me about this today, and I'll see you in the start of 2006 in February.
I'll see everyone in Seattle.
All right. Thanks, Eric.